Well, good evening again, beautiful jazz musicians of University Prep, and welcome to another edition of tonight's Vinyl Delights. So glad you could be here with us tonight. I skipped last night. Sorry, it was a long day. Kids were up late, and I just didn't get to a video, so apologies for that. I know you missed me. I'm sure you were waiting, chomping at the bit on the edge of your seat for this next tonight's Vinyl Delights. And as well you should be, because tonight we are celebrating the birthday of the great Stanley Turrentine, the tenor saxophonist. Put out countless amazing records in his career. Any record store you go into, the Stanley Turrentine section is going to be really thick because he put out tons of records. He was on Blue Note Records, put out amazing, great string of records for them. He recorded for all sorts of other labels as well after that, some even before Blue Note. But throughout that time, very few records he made were misses, were bad. CTI, he put out a bunch of records in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s on CTI records that are great too. Just one of the big, fat, distinctive tenor tones in jazz music, and he's always been a favorite of mine. I'm actually going to talk about two different albums tonight for the birthday boy, because I couldn't decide. My initial thought was to play you something from this record, which is one of my favorite records. I probably listened to this more than most other records in my collection. This is Stanley Turrentine with the Three Sounds on Blue Note Records. This was recorded in 1961. The Three Sounds were Gene Harris, Andy Simpkins, and Bill Dowdy, and they had a trio, and they released a bunch of records on Blue Note around the same time. And they teamed them up with Stanley for this record in 1961, which was a great idea. The soulful bluesiness of the trio and the soulful bluesiness of Stanley Turrentine just fit perfectly together. This one is a pretty moody record. It's a lot of ballads, down-tempo stuff. It's gorgeous. And I thought I would play something off of this, but then this record right here is the reason that I became a Stanley Turrentine fan in the first place. The year was 1986. I was just about to graduate from high school, and I was working at a radio station at a high school one city over from mine called KCEA, the Sound of the Sea. And they let me spin jazz records on this radio station when I was like 17, 18 years old. And they had this record. I had never heard of Stanley Harris before, but I was a big Gene Harris fan. And I couldn't believe it when I heard this record. It's the Gene Harris Trio +1. So, as you might remember, Gene Harris, the piano player from the Three Sounds, 1961, 1986. 25 years later, I think this was the first time the two worked together, and this was the only other time the first two worked, or Stanley Turrentine and Gene Harris worked together. And while this isn't a Three Sounds record, you could almost consider this a follow-up. The difference being that at this point, the Gene Harris Trio was rocking. It wasn't so much about that sort of down-tempo, mellow stuff. They were just killing it. And this is Ray Brown on bass and Mickey Roker on the drums, joining Gene and Stanley Turrentine. This is a live record recorded, where was it? Oh, at the Blue Note in New York City. How about that? And this particular track that we're listening to right now, you might recognize, is the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And when I heard this, I couldn't believe it. First of all, the intro, the setup by Gene Harris in this is just remarkable. He's such an incredible player, able to just wring so much emotion, so much joy, so much everything out of that piano. And you hear it all in this introduction. And then they start cooking, and it's just fantastic. Mickey Roker is just cruising on the drums, and Ray Brown, of course, just laying it down like you can't believe on the bass. And then Gene just laying these blues licks, just an endless stream of just beautiful blues licks coming out of Gene's fingers. And then Stanley jumps in when he comes into solo. It's it's a beautiful, just a heartwarming, fun, energetic. Here he is. Here's Stanley now. And the crowd's cheering him on. It's just amazing. Like, you almost feel like you're in the room at the Blue Note in 1985 when you listen to this record. This is Concord Records, another wonderful record label that has put out some fantastic music over the years and is still putting out music to this day, I do believe, from California. So I want you to check this out. Check out all those great, amazing things that Gene Harris is doing in the intro to this song. Check out the solos. Stanley Turrentine, his amazing tone, his amazing ideas as well. And then when they get to the end of this song, it's just fantastic. It's one of those moments where it certainly sounds unscripted and spontaneous. They may have ended the song the same way every night. I don't know, but it sounds like they're just kind of exploring each other and trying to figure out how to end the song, and it's just a beautiful thing, and the audience is with them the whole time. This is one of those records, one of those live records where the audience is really present, and I think it really brings a lot to the performance. So there's so much Stanley Turrentine to check out, as I said before. Those of you who are in the varsity band a couple of years ago, or maybe it was even last year, we played Minor Chant. You remember that song? That was a really fun tune to play, right? That's very indicative of Stanley Turrentine's whole vibe, right? So search out any Stanley. If you see a Stanley Turrentine record in the bins, they're not that expensive. This one's kind of pricey, but the rest of them aren't that bad, especially the more recent ones, the CTI records and Concord, this kind of stuff. You can buy this for $10, $8 probably somewhere. In fact, I probably did buy this for $8 somewhere. And it's one of my favorite records. So check them out. Stanley Turrentine with Gene Harris and the Three Sounds. Gene Harris Trio +1, that +1 being Stanley Turrentine. This is the Battle Hymn of the Republic. I'll also throw one of these tracks in there just so you can kind of compare and contrast 25 years apart with the same main characters. All right, so Stanley Turrentine, happy birthday. He's no longer with us, but I'm going to say happy birthday anyway. This, by the way, first stereo pressing. I purchased this. You might remember, those of you who were in New Orleans a couple months ago. God, that seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? We were in New Orleans a couple months ago, y'all. I bought this record the first time I went to Euclid Records. Some of you went to Euclid Records with me the last time we were down there, right? Well, this one came from Euclid the first time I was there 4 years ago. And like I said, I probably bought this for $8 somewhere here in Seattle. In fact, I think I might have bought this at Neptune Records. Now that I'm thinking about it, this might have come from Neptune down in the U District. All right, so there you have it. The birthday boy, Stanley Turrentine. Thanks so much for listening. Do check out the tracks. I think you'll dig them. They're both fantastic. Great transcription possibilities as well, because there's so many just top-notch killer blues licks that you can steal from all of these people, right? Steal their licks. So check it out. Find something you like. Get it on your horn, in your voice, on your whatever you're doing. Do whatever you can with it, all right? Have fun. Enjoy the Stanley Turrentine. Hope you're enjoying your spring break, and I'll be back tomorrow for another edition of tonight's Vinyl Delights.